Well, good evening to everyone. Welcome to tonight's event. My name is Joe Mihevik, and I will be facilitating tonight's event to share information on the new shelter at 22 Metropolitan Road and to provide an opportunity for you to speak with city staff and to ask questions. For more information, you can always visit the project website, which is www.toronto.ca/shelter expansion sites. Right off the top, for accessibility, if you require accommodation, phoning in actually works better than the computer audio. And the adaptive technology on your own phone works best when you phone in.
Next slide.
I would like to start by first welcoming Scott McDonald from Homes First, who will give a land acknowledgement. Over to you, Scott.
Good evening. We acknowledge the land we are standing on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and now is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississaugas and the Chippewa bands.
Thank you very much, Scott. If you cannot hear or understand what is being said, please dial into the number that you may see there, 416-915-6530, to connect to the session by telephone. You will then be prompted to enter an access code. The access code, I hope you can hear this, is 2451025394. Next slide, please. Marcus, thank you. Please be advised that this meeting is being recorded, and your opinions, statements, and voice will become part of the public record. Participants are asked not to share any personal information about themselves and other people, such as the name, address, and contact information within the meeting. If you wish to discuss a private matter, please contact us at the website, at the email address that you see there, 22 Metropolitan Road @gmail.com. You might want to take a screenshot of this particular page. We have a wholesome agenda today with a number of presenters that you'll hear from shortly. You have myself, and then you'll have Mayor John Tory, City of Toronto, Deputy Mayor Michael Thompson, City Councillor for Scarborough Centre, Ward 21, Loretta Ramzan, Project Director, Capital Development Unit of Shelter Support and Housing Administration. Short form is SSHA. You'll hear that a few times tonight. City of Toronto. Ryan Evershed, who's the Manager of Community Engagement and Client Programming at Homes First Society. Homes First being the organization that will be managing the 22 Metropolitan Road site. And Michael Lister, who's the Director of Housing and Shelters for Home First Society as well. Next slide, please. The purpose and agenda for today's meeting is as follows. We'll provide an overview of the 22 Metropolitan site, the Stronghouse program, which includes services and supports that are currently being planned for the site. We'll respond to questions, concerns, and offers of support from the community, and we will contribute, and we will be all looking to contribute this to the success of the shelter in the community. We'll start with opening remarks, presentation on 22 Metropolitan Road. That will take us a good almost an hour to do, 40 minutes, 50 minutes or so. Then we will have a significant portion of time that will allow us to hear your questions and to get your feedback. And we have up to 2 hours basically for closing and wrap up. Great. So our first presenter is going to be Mayor John Tory. Over to you to give welcoming comments.
Well, Joe, thank you very much. I hope everybody can hear me. And first of all, I want to say thank you to the people who are participating tonight, the residents of the City of Toronto, of Scarborough, for participating. And I want to thank, of course, the people who are presenting as well. I have heard a lot about this because I can tell you the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Michael Thompson has been most anxious to ensure both that I came tonight so that I could listen to what people had to say, but also he's been concerned throughout and has been actively engaged with me and with my office in making sure that this project, as it moves forward, is done in a way that is compatible with our responsibilities, which of course extend both to ensuring that neighborhoods are kept stable and safe, but at the same time that we also address that other most important part of our responsibilities as elected officials, namely to help care for the most vulnerable people who are living with us here in the City of Toronto. I have spent the spring and summer and into the fall attending, without exception, I don't think I've missed one of the meetings that are being held right across the city, from west to east and east to west and north to south, where we have been forced, in part by the pandemic, but really just otherwise by the press of events, to provide for more supportive housing and other kinds of housing that are meant to provide proper places to live, where there are supports given to some of our citizens that have issues confronting them, the likes of which I think many of us would find difficult to comprehend. And in those meetings, I've made a number of points. I mean, first, that the responsibility for sheltering and housing people that face some of these issues in their lives, starting with just the experience of and the issue of homelessness itself, experience of homelessness, rests with all of us across the city. And I can tell you with a totally honest heart that the meetings that I've been to have been in every single corner of the city. And if you look at the map that comes up later on in the presentation you're going to see tonight, it indicates that, again, every part of the city is being asked to help in the responsibility we have of sheltering people who are in need of shelter and in need of trying to stabilize themselves and put themselves in a more stable kind of setting. The second thing that I have emphasized in all of these meetings is the dual nature of the responsibilities I have, and for that matter, the Deputy Mayor and all of the members of City Council, which is, yes, to make sure that we promote and support and ensure the stability and otherwise good faring of the neighborhoods across the city, but at the same time, that we make sure that we carry out our responsibilities to look after people who have issues confronting them, that we try to deal with and then get them back on their feet and get them into a more permanent, stable setting for themselves. When you look at this space, and I'm not going to preempt the presentation, but there's a very careful set of criteria that are used in deciding on places. And in this case, there's a number of instances as to why we would have this kind of supportive or shelter housing in different parts of the city. In this case, it's occasioned by a renovation of an existing building downtown that has to be emptied out in order to be completely renovated. And what was found by the staff, as they'll explain, when they went through the process of selecting a place, is they look at various criteria, which include the appropriate nature of a given building, the location of that building relative to transit, and so forth. And in this case, there was a building that was a hotel type building, so it's ready-made for this in many respects. It is close to transit, and so it met most of the criteria. And this is a process we've gone through in other parts of the city, where we find buildings not by drawing them out of a hat, but by going through a very careful process in that regard. But then we embark on a process like this, and I can't emphasize to you the importance of a meeting like this and other meetings to follow. And I can assure you that, given the commitment Deputy Mayor Thompson has demonstrated to me in terms of making sure this is done right, that we will be having whatever number of meetings we have to have, including those that are public meetings and others that happen at City Hall, to make sure that we get this right. So I would just say to you that I hope you'll keep in mind as you make comments, which I will take at face value and I will take notes of and listen to the entire discussion, that you remember, if you would, the balance that we have to strike as between making sure we meet the needs and the desires of all the people who live in neighborhoods across the city of Toronto, but also fulfill our responsibilities to those who are struggling the most. And we will be vigilant about issues like safety. We will be vigilant about providing the supports in the Metropolitan, Stronghouse in its new Metropolitan location. But we have to provide these supports and provide this shelter for people who are in need. And I stand behind that as a principle and have done so right across the city. And to be frank, most of the places, in fact, without exception, they've all worked out fine. Sometimes there's some adjustment and transformational, things that you go through on the way there, but they have worked out to be successful, both in terms of sheltering people and in terms of having them fit into the point where, in many cases, the neighborhoods end up adopting these places and playing a role in these buildings that is commensurate with how we see ourselves as Torontonians supporting each other. So I'll stop there, Joe, and thank you for the time, and look forward to the discussion tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Tory, for your comments. We appreciate you being here. We also have opening remarks from our Deputy Mayor, Michael Thompson, who's also the councillor for the area, councillor for Scarborough Centre, Ward 21. Over to you, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Joe, and good evening, everyone, and good evening, Mayor Tory. I just wanted to follow up on the...
So, Caroline, I'm going to suggest that we go on to the African ancestral acknowledgement, and then maybe by then we'll have sorted out the sound.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we're going to go back to Scott McDonald from Homes First to read the African ancestral acknowledgement. Thank you.
Thank you. The city of Toronto acknowledges all treaty people, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. We pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent.
Great, thank you very much, Scott. I'm going to suggest...
Joe, I think I'm back.
Oh, great. Michael, you're back. Councillor Thompson is back.
No problem. It's just the nature of technology sometimes, Joe.
Yes.
I think I left off. I was saying that this particular facility at one point was the Holiday Inn, Howard Johnson's, and it's now the Knightsbridge. As the mayor has indicated, we have a responsibility and an obligation to obviously provide shelter for those who are in need. I learned about the intent of our shelter support and housing staff, along with Home First, to put a facility at 22 Metropolitan Road, at which point I asked that this meeting be held today. So it was approximately 2 weeks ago. And so this is an opportunity for members of the community to hear about the proposal, to ask questions, to understand how it will impact the community. I know that the residents on the west side of Warden, all the residents living on Colchurst Road, Lupin, and the other streets that are there, you're not immediately next to the facility, but I felt that it was necessary that you had an opportunity to hear about what's being proposed by our staff, as well as Home First, along with the businesses in the area and so on. We know that there are plans to ensure that there are services provided, programs are provided for those residents who are being moved into the community. We also know that often there are concerns around safety, and those are some of the issues that I wanted to ensure that members of our community were aware of, and to give you the opportunity to ask questions and to provide you with feedback and so on. I think it's important to recognize that we don't have to go far to find homelessness in our community. We had a woman this summer, her name was Dominica, who for most of you may have seen her when you went to Highland Farms. We have just down the street further at Shropshire and Kennedy Road, where the former hydro lands are located. The lands are owned by the city now, where we have people that are taking up residency in the open field there. We are working to address those particular issues. We have the Birkdale Women's Shelter and so on in the community. And so from my perspective, because as the mayor has pointed out, all communities are being asked to do more to help this particular problem that not only the city of Toronto is facing, but cities around the world are facing these issues. And the question is, how do we address these issues? How do we work in in conjunction with the service provider, the city agencies, and the community at large, the local councillor, because we know that there are residents who unfortunately are having challenges, and we have an obligation to help. And so this meeting is designed to allow you to be able to ask your questions, for you to get feedback, as well as to get more information about what is being proposed. I'm also learning about what's being proposed as well. I want you to know that I don't have all the information. I don't know all the details, but it has been raised with me, and I felt that it was best for us to have a meeting. I know the holidays are fast approaching, but you know, as the staff and Home First are looking to open this facility in January of next year, I felt that it was really important to have this meeting this evening and to hear from you. So I'm here to listen, and I thank you all very much as members of the community for being here. Thank all the presenters as well as the staff that are here. And of course, we'll have more to say as the meeting move forward. So thank you very much, and over to you, Joe.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Thompson. So next is a note on Webex and accessibility. If you require an accessibility-related accommodation, adaptive technologies on your phone often work best. It's worth repeating that. A panelist will describe the content on the slides during the presentation. That is why I and others will more read the slides as much as anything else, so that everyone has access to them. Later on, this video will be on the city's website, and it will be closed captioned when it's posted there. I would encourage you to familiarize yourself with the Webex platform and your phone or computer. Knowing how to raise and unraise your hand to ask a question and how to type questions in the Q&A box helps make the meeting run more smoothly. And we will review how to do this before we start the questions and answers. A last note before we get on to the presenters themselves from City Staff and Homes First. Next slide, please. If you are asking a question, be brief and limit yourself to one question or comment at a time. Of course, be a good listener and share the space with your neighbors. There will be other opportunities to engage and offer feedback and insight. Be patient. We will do our best to resolve technical issues if they occur. And lastly, please be respectful. The City of Toronto is an inclusive public organization. Racist or other forms of prejudicial, derogatory, or discriminatory comments and questions, including name calling, simply will not be tolerated. On the question and answer period, there are two ways. We're not going to open the Q&A box yet, but this is just something to keep in mind as we go through the presentations if a question does pop up into your mind. After the presentation, participants can ask questions and make comments in one of two ways. City staff will continuously monitor and review the Q&A to make sure that the most common issues are addressed in tonight's presentation. And here are the two ways. One is you can type questions in the Q&A box on the lower right side of your screen. And that's only for computer people. You can also verbally ask questions by raising your hand, and that service or technique or tool is available on the computer and on the phone. And those boxes and tools will be open after the presentations, which we're going to get into right away. Our first presenter is from the City of Toronto Service Shelter Support and Housing Administration, and that is Loretta Ramzan, and she will take the presentation from here. Over to you, Loretta.
Thank you, Joe. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you for taking the time this evening to join us to hear more about 22 Metropolitan Road and the services and supports planned for this site. I will walk you through a presentation that provides an overview of homelessness in Toronto and the services that Shelter Support and Housing Administration provides. I hope this presentation addresses some of the questions that you may have, and after the presentation, staff will be available to answer your questions or respond to your concerns. This particular slide will provide a context of homelessness in Toronto. The image is of a single bed with a storage cabinet. The City of Toronto conducted its fifth Streets Needs Assessment in April 2021. The Streets Needs Assessment is a needs assessment survey and point-in-time count of people experiencing homelessness in Toronto, and it is led by Shelter Support and Housing Administration. This report provides critical data to understand the impact of the pandemic on homelessness and broader needs and barriers to services for people experiencing homelessness in Toronto. Based on the 2021 Streets Needs Assessment, it is estimated that there were 7,347 people experiencing homelessness in Toronto on April 21st, 2021. At that time, 5,810 people, or 79% of the total homeless population, were staying in city-administered sites. Challenges in the shelter system have been compounded by the opioid crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic. More than 3/4 of the people experiencing homelessness report having one or more types of health challenges. Half of all respondents reported a mental health issue, and 42% identified a substance use issue. There has been an overall decrease in homelessness from 8,715 in 2018 to 7,347 in 2021. That's a decrease of 16%, largely due to a fewer number of refugee families as a result of COVID-19 border restrictions. Capacity in the shelter system for single individuals is currently higher than before the pandemic. Outdoor homelessness has increased to an estimated 742 people sleeping outside on April 21st, 2021. That's an increase from an estimated 533 people staying outdoors in 2018. As part of the city's COVID-19 response, 7,414 people experiencing homelessness were moved from the shelter system into permanent housing from the period of April 2020 to November 2021. Next slide. This slide shows the programs are located within communities and how they are scattered throughout the city. Shelter Support and Housing Administration is the division at the city which manages the emergency shelter system. We currently oversee over 80 shelters and 24-hour respite sites, all operated by skilled community agencies, and we directly operate over 20 shelter programs. As you can see, the availability of emergency shelter services varies across communities throughout the city. Our knowledge, expertise, and responsibility is focused on three outcomes: providing people experiencing homelessness in Toronto access to safe, high-quality emergency shelter. People are provided housing-focused supports that ensure homelessness is rare, brief, and non-recurring. And three, low-income households have access to housing benefit programs that provide affordability and stability. Providing emergency shelter for people who are experiencing homelessness is an important community service that is offered across communities throughout the city. Sites are located within communities, which means that they are often located near other community services like libraries, community centers, schools, and healthcare services. Shelters are located within communities not only because it's important for people staying at these locations to be close to community resources. Shelters are allowed in all areas except those zoned as employment industrial. Next slide. This slide describes the Stronghouse relocation. Stronghouse is located at 805A Wellington Street West at the corner of Strachan and Wellington Street West, where it has been in operation since 1996. This building and the adjacent building at 805 Wellington Street West are city-owned assets. Over the past 25 years, Stronghouse has evolved into a permanent housing solution for many of Toronto's most vulnerable individuals. The building is a converted warehouse that is nearly 150 years old, and it has unfortunately come to the end of its lifespan. As 805A Wellington Street has been identified as requiring extensive repairs, Shelter Support and Housing Administration, the Housing Secretariat, and Homes First have been planning for a redevelopment of the property. Damage caused by a sewage backup and a fire in September of 2021 have created an urgent need to move the residents to other accommodations immediately. In light of the planned redevelopment and to ensure the health and safety of the residents, the current tenants will be relocated to new locations, including 22 Metropolitan Road in early January 2022. The City of Toronto will continue working with Homes First Society on the redevelopment of 805 Wellington Street West to create new affordable and supportive rental housing following the relocation of the tenants. More information will become available in 2022 as the design of the redevelopment progresses. Additional information about the planned redevelopment will be shared by Homes First later in this presentation. The city works with nonprofit, Indigenous, and cooperative and private housing organizations like Homes First to reach the target of approving 40,000 affordable and supportive homes by 2030 as outlined in the Housing TO 2020 to 2030 Action Plan. Next slide. This slide shows the criteria for selecting a shelter location. A common community question we are asked is about how the city makes decisions about the sites that are selected for a new shelter. So I'd like to spend a few minutes sharing information that I hope is helpful. Shelters are one of many municipal services that the city provides. Like daycares, libraries, and community centers, it is important that shelters are available in neighborhoods across Toronto. When searching for a new shelter location, city staff will seek buildings that are available, affordable, and of a suitable size, and close to transit and services. Prior to the pandemic, Shelter Support and Housing Administration also operated a number of hotel locations to expand and contract available space quickly in response to shelter demand. These sites were primarily serving families and refugees, but now the majority are a part of the COVID-19 response. Hotel sites were previously selected through a request for proposal process to support this initiative. As authorized by city bylaws, city staff have the delegated authority to site new shelters in locations that meet zoning requirements before engaging with the community. In March 2020, additional authority was delegated under the Municipal Code Chapter 59 Emergency Management as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Along with the typical authorities that allow city staff to place shelters in locations that meet zoning bylaws, further emergency authorities have been granted to allow and enable city staff to rapidly expand the shelter system and to ensure the safety of staff and residents. This slide continues to show criteria for selecting a shelter location. Due to the urgency required for this search, we conducted a search for a location that was more or less turnkey ready for operations with minimal retrofits required, that would adequately allow us to meet physical distancing guidelines, was available right away, was close to transit, and was accessible. Hotels are considered optimal solutions as they provide the furniture, physical distancing within the shelter residents and allowing them to be in their own rooms and have their own bathrooms, and are able to provide cleaning services as well as catering services if required. All potential properties identified for use were assessed by an interdivisional team in consideration of the program needs. Next slide. This slide shows an image of the front of 22 Metropolitan Road. The hotel at 22 Metropolitan Road in Scarborough was identified as an appropriate option for the relocation of the residents as it met all of the required criteria. 22 Metropolitan is a new addition to a portfolio group of hotels made available to Shelter Support and Housing Administration through one of our current hotel providers that was selected through an RFP process that was previously mentioned, and it can be extended into 2024 if required. The property is a two-story brick building. The site assessment highlighted that the setup allows for sufficient client and staffing spaces as well as client programming. Common spaces in the hotel include a breakfast lounge, office space, a commercial kitchen, a ballroom, and campaign room that could be used for programming. An outdoor grass central courtyard also provides some brick walkways that can be used for client gathering and a smoking area. The building has a surveillance system and a large parking lot, so parking will be available for staff. The 68 bus stops at Metropolitan Road and Warden Avenue and is a 2-minute walk from the property. This bus connects to Line 2 via Warden Station. The program will open with up to 75 rooms for the residents that require relocation. Next slide. This slide speaks to community safety. The community safety team will begin on January 3rd, 2022, the day before the site opens. The city has contracted One Community Solutions to provide community safety teams at various services for people experiencing homelessness throughout Toronto, especially at the temporary shelter locations. One Community Solutions is an alternative safety service provider that works from an understanding of homelessness, substance use, and mental health in Toronto. CSTs, which are frontline workers who use a compassionate, patient, and non-judgmental approach to their work and have experience on how to effectively and respectively work with people facing complex challenges. They establish healthy relations and lines of communications with shelter residents while assisting shelter staff when required to ensure that all clients comply with the shelter standards. Working with a defined geographic area around the homeless service, community safety teams help to support shelter residents while also creating safer community spaces and picking up used needles and/or discarded drug paraphernalia. CSTs usually work in pairs, both inside and outside of services for people experiencing homelessness. Details on the specific area covered and services provided varies from site to site. The picture in the slide indicates the area that will be covered by the community safety team for 22 Metropolitan. You'll see that it is just south of the 401 and just east of Warden Avenue. A specific telephone number for the community safety team will be available closer to the opening of the site. The information will be added to the project webpage.
Great, thank you very much, Loretta. That was the city perspective, and now we're going to hear from the operators of the 22 Metropolitan Road Shelter, and that is folks from the Homes First Society, starting with Ryan Evershed, the Manager of Community Engagement and Client Programming, and Michael Lister, who's the Director of Housing and Shelters at Homes First Society. Over to you, Ryan.
Thanks, everybody. Just wanted to introduce myself quickly. So Ryan, as Joe said, Manager of Community Engagement and Client Programming. I oversee a lot of the programming and community engagement initiatives that happen on site. So that could be anything from recreational programming to life skills programming, dealing with community engagement activities on site and off site. And then I'm also really probably one of the main points of contact for community questions, concerns, and Joe and I will be the the chairs of our community liaison committee, which we'll talk about later going forward. So really looking forward to getting to know everyone. Michael Lister is going to jump in a little bit about Homes First, and then I'll continue after him. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ryan. As Ryan introduced me, I'm Michael Lister. I'm the Director of Shelters and Housing at Homes for Society. So I'm going to take a couple minutes, and by the way, thanks everyone for attending tonight, to give a brief overview of who we are at Homes First and our the reasons for the relocation of Stronghouse, a bit of a background there, although Loretta did a great job of explaining a bit of the pressing needs for sort of this unusual move. But to jump right in, Homes for Society, which will be running the hotel shelter at 22 Metropolitan, has been in business for nearly 40 years. We specialize in providing homes and housing options for the people with the fewest housing options in Toronto. That is our mandate. We offer at all of our programs, case management, program supports, referral to community services, housing search, help for our in our shelters, meals, harm reduction, recreational programming. In addition to the housing, we have 300 rent geared to income units throughout the city. We operate quite a few shelters, traditional congregate shelters, including 3 in Scarborough already, plus a large winter respite on the exhibition grounds. We currently operate 2 different warming centers for when the city calls an extreme cold weather alert, as well as 3 COVID-19 emergency response hotel programs. This will be our 4th, but this one's a bit different. If we want to go to the next slide. It's a bit different because, again, as we've noted, this is a relocation or replacement site for Stronghouse. The program, as Loretta noted, which has been providing housing solutions for 25 years this month in the near west end of downtown Toronto. Again, it is supportive housing, deeply supportive housing with 24-hour staffing, 83 tenants, and we had a small shelter component. As Loretta mentioned, it was a 150-year-old lumber mill, which was converted in the late 90s, won a Governor General's Award for excellence for its redesign and architecture. Unfortunately, as was mentioned earlier, the building has come to its end of its life. So as part of the long-term plan redevelopment of the site, which we've been working on for actually quite some time, we had hoped to construct a building on this existing plot of land and move everyone to that building, and then work on Strawn. But recent events have forced our hand, and we needed to take more immediate action. So right now the plan is, and there'll be quite a lot of detail released next year. We're gonna have a website up and running. We're meeting with architects. We already have seed funding with the federal government. We're working hand in hand with the City of Toronto and the Housing Secretary to redevelop the site, where we will have upwards of 200 to 250 deeply supported residential units at this site, up from the current 83, which are, I think, desperately needed in the system, including half. We're going to be building half of this program for seniors. That is seniors experiencing homelessness who are street involved and need specialized care. Unfortunately, seniors are the fastest growing segment of the shelter population, and there is a lack of long-term care beds in the system in Ontario. So our long-term goal is to address that with specialized programs at this site. But it did require the building to be emptied, and all of our people that are currently tenants will be decamping, for the ones that choose, of course, to come, up to 75 current tenants to 22 Metropolitan Road. Next slide. So 22 Metropolitan Road, and we'll have time to talk about the supports that will be embedded here later on in the call. Fortunately, we have an experienced, dedicated staff team that's already been in place, some of whom have been working at Stronghouse for years. They will be coming with the tenants as well. So we'll be moving everybody sort of lock, stock, and barrel over the coming couple months. We will continue to have 24-hour support. That would mean we're going to have minimum of 4 frontline staff running, plus supervisors and management, all year round, 365. The meals will be provided on site through the hotel operator. We're going to have recreational and social engagement programming, harm reduction supports available to all of our residents, which are for this. This is not a drop-in program or a community hub. This will be for the programs of the resident only. The supports include, an experienced team of intensive case management workers, life skills workers. We have people dedicated that deal with people's living space in case there's hoarding issues. And again, we can explore this later. We also will be coming with a number of valued community partners that have been supporting our clients for quite some time. Plus, we will be establishing new supports at the new site and exploring other opportunities for supports for our residents once they arrive. Next slide.
So I can jump in
okay.
around
Ryan,
program
thank you.
goals. Thanks, Michael. So some of our goals for our 22 Metropolitan site, I think first at the top of this list is providing a safe space and stabilizing supports for clients currently living outdoors. So every resident, it's all case by case. Every resident is different when it comes to their goals, aspirations around housing, occupations, just general lifestyle. And really, if we're going to help point them in the right direction, we have to provide stabilizing supports on site and through partnerships, and just a safe space to live. Of course, enhance the health and well-being of residents. So that includes mental health, physical health supports as well, with doctors on site. We want to develop programming that has a focus on building life skills and mental wellness. So we definitely do recreational programming. Karaoke is popular, bingo, some yoga is always popular, but always what we want to do is focus on building life skills. So things like financial workshops we've done, relationship coaching, things like that, where we can have a deeper connection, but also develop skills that are going to help people outside of Homes First. Definitely what we want to do is build a strong sense of community internally and externally. So that starts with our community engagement team, building rapport with staff and clients, coming up with fun engagement opportunities for people to get to know each other, but also externally. And that's a lot easier said than done, especially in this climate around the pandemic. But finding ways where we can connect communities, bring people together, have engagement opportunities where folks can get to know each other, and really just learning about this community and building a bigger, safer community together is an ultimate goal. And then creating programming that engages and engagement opportunities that enable shelter residents to share their stories and experiences. So this is a major goal for our community engagement coordinator when they're hired, who's part of our intensive case management team, to connect, build rapport, help provide avenues for residents to express themselves, whether it's through artistic creation or having a chance to just be a voice and a representative for other residents, tenant meetings, local public meetings on our liaison committees, things like that. As you can see in this picture here, this is actually an opportunity, a fun engagement opportunity we did to have deeper conversations around housing, gaps around housing experience, finding housing, especially coming from marginalized communities. And we did it in a fun way. We were building collages, which kind of enabled that nice, safe environment to have those conversations in a creative space. So things like that are really main program goals for us at Homes First. We can move to the next slide. Rights and responsibilities. So shelter residents are equal citizens of the city and have the same rights, freedoms, and responsibilities as other residents of the city. All residents are entitled to the same rights, privacies as any other citizen, and they have the right to a safe place to shelter and a welcoming program, of course. Can move to the next slide.
It's back to me.
Oh, no, just before we jump to you.
One more. Okay.
One more community engagement activity that we're really proud of is our Art of Neighboring series. So it's a community education series. It was the name is based off of a book, but really it's a chance for us to have deeper conversations, for people to ask questions and learn more about what we do in the social sector and what Homes First does as service providers. having conversations that maybe we weren't able to have in public sessions like this if people wanted to learn more. So it is a 4-week program. We do an hour and a half each week over a month span, and we talk about things like the folks we serve, myths and homeless 101. We talk about trauma-informed care, building compassion. We do a lot of role playing that's very engaging. There's different activities that people that we get involved with. And then at the end, we talk about de-escalation. We do, if people are interested, a bonus sort of naloxone and harm reduction training. I'll read our mission. The Art of Neighboring provides a safe space for participants to reflect on their personal experiences, recognize where their thoughts and beliefs come from, and explore the relationship between the two in an effort to become a more supportive community member, loved one, and friend to themselves. So what we'll do is we can send sort of links out to people, but we always want to encourage people to get involved. If we have enough folks sign up, we can create a meeting and set a date. It's really fun. We've done it several times in different communities around the shelters that we operate. So just a fun plug there for Art of Neighboring, but another way for us to have deeper conversations and learn from each other. Over to you, Joe.
Great, thank you. Sorry for interrupting you there.
No problem.
I was 1 page short. Okay, so I'm going to speak for a few moments before we open the floor to questions and answers and comments around the community engagement piece. The city is committed to community engagement to ensure the success of the shelter in the community. We, and by we is meant myself as a third-party person, Homes working with great folks like Ryan and Michael and team at Homes First, along with the city staff, to engage with communities after the site is secured in advance of a site opening. And this is now in advance of this particular site opening. The goal of the engagement is to support the community members in welcoming the shelter residents into the community in a successful way. Now, the key thing on this, one of the key things on this page is to note the email address. There's a special dedicated email for this site, 22 Metropolitan Road at gmail.com. A few people have already emailed me there. Use that email to basically sign up for the community information bulletin that comes out every so often, to communicate with myself. And if I can't answer the question, then I farm it out either to Homes First or the appropriate city staff person. And it's also a place where you'll be able to sign up for the Community Safety Walk on December 30th. So here's what we've done so far. We've started to track community concerns, action and follow-up. I record every concern, and if we could start to group them and we say, okay, this is an area where we really need to work on, then I forward that concern to city staff or Homes First, and you develop a strategy to deal with it. And it could be volunteering, it could be donations, or it could be an issue that arises in the immediate neighborhood. We will have stakeholder meetings. Let's say that you are a group of 10 people in one of the businesses nearby or one of the faith communities nearby, and you would like to have a meeting with myself or Homes First and city staff or whoever you wish. It will be my role to help facilitate the carrying out of that meeting. We're having this information session. We want to be as transparent as possible. And so that's why today is happening at the urging of the local city councillor, Michael Thompson. And then on December 30th, and I'll speak to that more in a moment with the next slide, we hope to have a community safety walk. There's the Art of Neighboring workshop that the Homes First Society has really developed a specialty in. And another tool that we will be developing early in the new year, if people want it, is a community liaison committee. And that is about 10, 15, maybe up to 20 people in the local community who say want to meet on a monthly basis. And with those meetings, you can share all kinds of things, from issues that happen in the community to ideas that you have to maybe help folks that are in the shelter to move out into social housing or affordable housing settings. There's all kinds of things that are possible with the liaison committees. We have good experiences of them right across the city, and that's a tool available to this community if people so want it. And if you want to send an email that, yes, you think it's a good idea, and yes, you are interested in it, then yes, just drop me a line at 22 Metropolitan Road, and we will be sure to follow up. I'll speak a little bit more with the next slide on the community safety walk. So yes, the second last day of the year, Thursday, December 30th at 3 o'clock, we're meeting in the parking lot of the 22 Metropolitan Shelter or Hotel. We will do a community safety walk, and the way it works is, and I'm very open to hearing from folks here, where would you like to walk? Where do you think that an issue may arise? Where is there a safety situation that could be improved? Maybe with more lighting, maybe with some planters, maybe with a new approach, maybe that you want to highlight to the police that this is a problem corner and always has been a problem corner, and you don't want it to get any worse. What are the things that concern you as a local resident? That this is the time that you can come, and the players will be myself, city people will be there, Homes First will be there, the police will be there, and hopefully some neighboring businesses and residents will also be there. The one thing that I do have to say is that because of COVID, we do have a restriction on the amount of people that can be present, and that will be 25. So I would really, really hope that you can send me an email saying that you would like to come, and there won't be a problem. I don't think we'll hit 25, but just in case we do, we need to honor the COVID protocols. So all are invited. Email me if you would like to be a part of this. The other tool that you may want to start to think about, next slide please, is the Community Liaison Committee. A Community Liaison Committee is exactly that, liaisoning, doing liaison work between the work inside the shelter and the community outside the shelter. The group is chosen with a view to representing different sectors of the community, so businesses, maybe the faith communities, maybe some of the residential streets west of Warden Avenue. You can become, we will be eventually letting people know through that Gmail account how to become a member of the CLC. Let me know if you have any ideas around that, and if you would like to participate in that. And early in the new year, as the shelter opens, soft opening, we will let you know how you can participate in that initiative. Okay, we've talked a lot. Now we're going to be moving into the question and answer period. Just to set the stage for that, here's the way, next slide please. Thank you, Marcus. There are additional representatives from the city and Homes First who will be supporting the question and answer period, and they include Sinead Canavan, Project Director, General Manager's Office, Suhal Ahmed, Manager of Infrastructure and Planning and Development, Brad Boucher, Manager of Homelessness Initiatives and Prevention Services. From Homes First, we have Alexandra Perry, who's the Assistant Director of Community Partnerships and Client Services, Katie Saunders, who's currently the manager of Stronghouse and will be the manager at 22 Metropolitan, and Jamie Facciolo, who's the Director of Development and Homelessness Services. And we also have James Hung, who is the Community Relations Police Officer at 41 Division, who is also available just in case. Those are some of the players, in addition to the panelists that you have just heard from. Please be conscious that this meeting is being recorded, and your opinion statements and voice will become part of the public record. Participants are asked not to share any personal information about themselves and other people, such as the name, address, and contact information within the meeting. If you wish to discuss a private matter, please contact us, contact me at 22 Metropolitan Road at gmail.com, and I will be sure to respond. Here's how you ask a question or make a comment today. There are two basic strategies. For those who've joined by computer and are on your laptop or desktop, I'm going to provide you an example of how to use the basics. You will see a raise your hand icon on the right-hand side of the middle of the screen. So right side, middle of the screen. To submit a verbal question, press the icon to raise your hand. If selected, the host will say your name. I will say your first name only and ask that you be unmuted. I will have the help of Carolyn, who will be helping me at the back end. Thank you, Carolyn. After you ask your question, you will be invited to put yourself back on mute. Press that icon again, and that will put your hand down. You will also see a Q&A box towards the bottom right of your screen to ask a question. Use this box to submit a typed question. Only staff will be able to see the questions. Ask questions to all the panelists. Your questions will be read out loud for everyone to hear and be redirected to a panelist to answer verbally. On the bottom right of your screen, there's an icon with participants and Q&A. Press the toggle. I will press the toggle between opening and closing participants and Q&A panelists. If you see a blue box, it's open. If you see a black box, it is closed. Next slide, please. So if you are on the phone, people who have called in can ask questions verbally. To raise your hand virtually, dial number 3, *3. No, not number 3, *3. The host, I will see, or the host, the back end folks will see a hand up beside the first 3 digits of your phone number, alerting us that you would like to ask a question. During the Q&A, you will be unmuted and you will be let know as to when you speak. After your question has been answered, please dial *3 to put your hand down. We will get to as many, next slide please, we will get to as many questions as possible, rotating between the various methods of participation, phone and chat, and advanced emails. Our staff will continuously monitor and review the questions and answers to ensure the most common issues are addressed in tonight's meeting. We will try to answer all your questions within the allotted time. For questions not answered, again, that magic Gmail account, feel free to reach out there. And lastly, a reminder to be brief, to be a good listener, to be patient, and to be respectful. We're all trying to figure this thing out together. And with that, let's open it up, and I will invite...
Joe?
Yes.
Joe, Deputy Mayor Thompson here.
Yes.
I wonder if you could provide an overview to the community as to how the notification took place, how the homes were notified about this meeting for tonight, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
The notification included 2 things. One was we collected as many emails as we could through researching the emails of the businesses along Warden and along Metropolitan. And then we hand delivered using volunteers from Homes First to every home within these boundaries. Ellesmere to the south, 401 to the north, Crocus or the Hydro Corridor to the west, and Warden Avenue to the east, plus all the businesses along Metropolitan. So they were hand delivered a flyer about on Thursday of last week. I'm starting to lose my sense of time. I was a part of that delivery as well. So that's who has been invited to this. And then of course we invited folks, whoever emailed me, to spread the word among their e-list and I know that your office did some of that as well. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Thompson. Great. Okay. Well, that's our first question. So let's open it up to you folks, residents, business owners, faith community members, to ask your questions. We'll start. Maybe we'll start with a written question. And it comes from Muriel, who is asking how many tenants will move from Stronghouse to 22 Metropolitan Road, and when will that happen? That's Home's first question. Ryan or Michael? Michael.
I can take that. Thank you, Muriel, for the question. So we currently have 75 residents of Stronghouse. They will all be offered a spot at 22 Metropolitan Road Without getting into too much detail, we do have legislative requirements as landlords. Everyone at Strawn is a tenant. So we need to work within that framework. We just started meeting with tenants earlier this month. Indications are most people are very excited actually about the move. I think we indicated the building that they're living in at the moment is not in great shape. We recognize that it is disruptive. It is in the downtown core, and people have ties there. But I think there are some benefits to the built form, and it is going to be an iterative process. We are going to start moving people early January. I think I indicated earlier some people have been there. Well, we have an original resident of Stronghouse. She moved in 25 years ago. So people have deep roots in the building, and we need to make arrangements for belongings and other things, income supports to change. But we will start doing that the first week of January. In terms of how many of the 75 move, they do have the right not to come. We will support people as much as we can and alternative options, which unfortunately are limited when it comes to affordable housing or even shelter in downtown Toronto. Our expectation is the majority, a significant majority of the 75 will be coming with us, and we hope to have them all in place throughout the month of January. We will stagger the move. We will have to for capacity reasons, but January is when we'll start.
Great, thank you very much, Michael. We'll go now to a verbal question, and we'll open up the attendee to be able to ask a question. I think we have Steve on the line. Steve has his hand up. We open up Steve, Carolyn.
Yes, Steve, you've been unmuted. You can speak.
Thank you very much. I've been a very strong advocate for homeless, working with the homeless for the last 25 years. But I have some serious concerns. One, we're going to increase the budget so that the police have more access, more budgetary monies to make sure that we're protected in the neighborhood. Number two is with adding 75 potential residents that have drug and/or mental health issues. Is the Scarborough Health Network prepared to deal with an additional 30 to 40 people on a regular basis? And I also believe that your outreach to the community was far lacking. You only went as far as the hydro right away. I firmly believe that you should have went between Pharmacy and Birchmount from the 401 down to Lawrence. That's a huge concern. That whole area should have been notified. I heard about this very remotely. It was just by accident. And that's not a good thing when you're trying to reach out to the community.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. We appreciate your comments and your feedback. That's good for us to hear. I'm going to ask Michael or Ryan, because I do think that Steve was talking to the service model and the possible pressures on other systems in the area, including policing, including hospitals. So
I can answer some of the supports. I can't speak to the policing budget. I do know that the residents at Strawn that have been there for quite some time, in all of our, we have a very, very close working relationship with 14 Division, which is the police division that Stronghouse was located in. And to be honest with you, and not glossing this over, Strawn may be a unique program in that it wasn't a particularly large impact on the community when it came to policing. Now, in terms of the support services, and which is a really good question, there are issues around catchment area. A lot of the folks that we will be moving do have supports that are in the downtown core, but Katie Saunders, the manager of the program, and Alex Berry, who is our assistant director for community partnerships, who are both on this call, and they may be able to speak with it to this point in more detail than I can, have been working nonstop on transferring the programs or ensuring that there's a bridge. So, I mean, looking at it holistically overall, whatever services are transferred will continue to support the residents of 22 Metropolitan, and the ones that don't come with them. And I think your point is the Scarborough and the health teams in Scarborough, which we may partner with some local physicians to provide support. That will free up capacity for the the teams that were supporting our clients downtown. So overall, in terms of the city of Toronto, it's a wash. But I don't know if Alex, you want to jump in and speak to some of the services that we are anticipating to have at 22 Metropolitan.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Michael. So keeping this in mind, and thank you, Stephen, for the question, because we know that it can be both disruptive to the clients and the communities that are around these programs. I really appreciated the way Deputy Thompson mentioned earlier that this transition is a really key part of this, and making sure that we have the proper supports on site even before the doors open in January is a really important piece to us. So we have been working very, very hard to ensure not only that the supports that are currently being provided continue being provided, but also that we take the opportunity to actually grow in our partnerships. We have a strong partnership with the Canadian Centre for Refugee and Immigrant Health, which is also known as Health Equity, and the team that supports the Scarborough area. So they'll be on site Monday to Friday, at least through a registered nurse, an MD, or a nurse practitioner. We're going to be focusing, Katie and I, on making sure that there's a smooth transition and a warm transfer from the doctors and primary health teams that we're supporting the Strawn site to be the same when they come over to 22 Metropolitan. We mentioned earlier the internal supports we'll have within the organization, so our ICM team. That also includes our harm reduction team that will be coming on site as early as possibly next week to make sure that we're all ready and set up to go. And we'll also have a pharmacy on site 7 days a week. That is a partnership through Trust Care, and they have been supporting all of our hotel programs for over a year and a half now. So they're very, very familiar with our client population. That is similar to Strawn, maybe not in every single way, but in a lot of ways. And I think lastly, just a little bit more harm reduction support, which would be through a peer program and a COVID-related kind of mobile safe supply and harm reduction team that's called MOVID that will be on site as well. So Katie, I don't know if you wanted to add anything, but we are definitely wanting to take this opportunity to expand as much as possible and hopefully manage everything and anything on site so that the community is not having to, take on any adverse impact from this change and transition.
Yeah, Katie, maybe you have some comment. You're going to be directing the place, so let's hear from you, and then Mayor Tory would like in on it as well. So over to you, Katie, for now.
All right, thanks, Joe. Recognizing that we are moving out of the downtown core and away from a number of the supports that we do have in place for our residents down there. We are, my staff team is working to support the residents in maintaining strong connections to their community supports from the downtown core through, FaceTime and having a meeting room that the teams can gather with the residents directly on site with everything that they need set up, while we transition folks out of the downtown core and into supports with the Scarborough health supports there.
Thank you, Katie. Mayor Tory.
I did not actually have my hand up, Joe, but I will just say that one of the lessons that I've learned as we've gone through, different projects of this kind or others is exactly what the deputy mayor said, which is to have the supports in place at the beginning. You've heard that reaffirmed by the two people that are going to be helping with that. And I think that makes a world of difference in terms of how people settle in with the support from minute number one and how the people have had advanced time to prepare on site, as it were, to make that happen. So I can just assure you that the people that asked the question, that is very much a part of how we do this now, whether we do it on our own or do it with excellent organizations like Home First.
Thank you. We'll switch now to a written comment in our Q&A section, and this comes from a gentleman named James. Have there been studies on the effectiveness and outcome of such programs over the years, e.g., citizens found affordable housing, employment, reintegrated back into society, etc.? How successful have you been?
Joe, I can handle that, and thanks, James, for the question. I mean, handle it-ish in that I think it's a great question, and I would say though probably more aligned with not this particular program. So I guess what I'll try to do is concentrate on this particular program that will be at 22 Metropolitan. The question I think is very appropriate to the traditional shelters we run, the congregate shelters, and there is a lot of data that is being collected. This is very important, not just for funders, but to see what we're doing that's right, what we're doing that's wrong. And we have a whole data and analytics department within Homes First that are working on these exact questions. And I mean, I think Loretta touched on earlier, tracking people moving into housing from shelters is quite easy, and there are quite a few. I think it was in the thousands just over the course of the pandemic. To go deeper though, which is what I think you're asking, and what I'm very interested in, I'm a data-driven person, is how successful has this been? You mentioned reintegration to society, employment, health outcomes, social determinants of health. These are all the things that we're very interested in. But to pivot back to 22 Metropolitan and not ramble on about all of our other programs, this is a program that is specifically for the tenants of Stronghouse. So what that means is they already have housing. So Stronghouse is considered housing, and unfortunately, again, because of the state of the building, they have to decamp from that program and move elsewhere, and it is into a shelter. So that is part of this process. Unfortunately, people are losing technically their housing, but we want to support them in the same way as much as possible. And the tenants of Stronghouse, not to get into too much detail about who we support there, they were already housed, and again they're only unhoused now because of the unfortunate state of the building. Mostly everyone there is on disability because of a significant physical or mental health issue, or we have quite a few seniors. So they're past working age, they're on a pension. So that is the flavor. It's a different program, and this is a different than our normal shelter opening, which we move in people who are unhoused or may come from other shelters. This is the entire program moving at once. So although I love the question, it doesn't necessarily apply specifically to this program where people were housed and are largely on disability or on a pension. So I think that may have covered it.
Great, thank you,
And
Michael.
I'll just jump in, Joe, if that's okay, just to provide a bit more general information that might go beyond what the program might be at 22 Metropolitan. But the focus of our shelter services in general is on housing. Just to reiterate some of the stats mentioned earlier, 7,414 people experiencing homelessness were moved into permanent housing from April 2020 to November 2021. So I do think that sort of demonstrates the effectiveness and of the outcome of these programs in the context of ensuring that individuals are moved into affordable housing. The city does provide data and information about people experiencing homelessness who are entering and leaving the shelter system each month on its website through the shelter system flow data. This includes information about people entering the shelter system, which was 1,315 in November, and information on the number of people exiting the shelter system, which was 1,063 in November. We also have historical trends and comparison between the years, and we provide that data through the open data portal on the city's website.
Great, thank you very much. In the minutes to this meeting, I will be sure to include that link for folks that are interested in following that. We'll go to a verbal question now. Carolyn, well, and maybe just to repeat, if you are having trouble hearing this and you're on the computer, there is a number you can call. The phone number, for some reason, allows for more clear sound and access. It's 416-915-6530. The access code is 2451022-5394. You can phone in, press *3, and that will raise your hand, and our helpful city staff will get to you. Carolyn, do we have anyone on the verbal side of asking questions?
No, we don't have anyone with their hand raised.
Okay.
Maybe Alessandra can read one of the pre-written questions received.
Alessandra, any written questions that have been received?
Yes, so
Pre-received?
the first question is, what kind of challenges or impact do you see on the surrounding neighborhood based on previous experiences of placing transitional housing clients in the community?
Okay, so what kind of impacts are we expecting here? Maybe Michael or Ryan?
Sure. I can talk to that. I mean, again, it's I don't know that we have much experience in this, the specific wording, placing transitional housing clients. Again, Stronghouse tenants were housed and then again have to be relocated because of the state of the building. So it is the first time, this is quite unusual, doing something like this. In Stronghouse, I mean, the community was formed long before there was actually much of a community at that location. When just 25 years ago, it's hard to believe how much that neighborhood had changed. Liberty Village didn't exist. There were no condos around. So we were the community. And I guess that's our goal. We have a community within the building, but it was integrated in a broader sense. And I think our goal is the same, that when we move the group or when we open any shelter and bring in strangers, these aren't strangers, but when we do that, the people that are now living at that address are part of the neighborhood, and we have expectations that we integrate into the community as best as we can. I will say this, after working in this this field a long time, that the majority, almost everyone that is staying at a homeless shelter or in a supportive housing program has the same goals as you or I. They want to have a good day. They want to get through the night. They want to get along with everyone. I mean, it is true, like everywhere else, there are people that present challenges. And one of the reasons we do have staff on site and do have the support systems that we have is to address those challenges. So if there's going to be an impact on the community, but hopefully it's largely positive. I mean, there will be people that will frequent businesses. There will be people that use the services in the neighborhood, TTC, restaurants, other things. I mean, hopefully things are open in the new year. And if there is a negative impact, we do have an experienced staff team on site, and we're there to address it. I mean, I will say this for Strawn, when there has been concerns from our neighbors, often it's been with the expectation, with it's coming out of a concern. Because like I said, we do have older clientele, we do have people with physical and psychiatric challenges. And if there is a concern, the neighbors may have called us because they see someone that looks like they're struggling, may have trouble getting across the street, maybe having a bad day. And we try to address that from a medical perspective. So we're very thorough. I can't promise that we are going to fix every problem that's brought to us, but I can promise this. We will address every issue that's brought to us. We will, to the best of our ability. And often the issues are something psychosocial that we can address through our supports. And that is our plan. So I'm hopeful that the impact is largely positive, and anything that comes up that is felt to be negative, please bring it to our attention, and we will do our level best to look into it.
Thank you, Michael. Mayor Tory.
So I was just going to comment on the bit of the flip side of this, which is that my experiences I've gone across, and I know that Michael and others would know a lot about this, and you would too. But there are instances, many, almost across the board, where after these residents have been in the neighborhood for a while, the neighbors reach out and do things like trivia nights at one of the shelters downtown. They came and put up Christmas decorations last year. The local neighbors did. In a fairly short period of time, there really is a degree of neighborhood integration that happens, and the kind of concern that Michael made reference to, where a lot of people will call in if they're worried about one of the residents takes hold. And so I would just say there's many, many, many very positive stories where, to use the expression I used in my opening remarks, the neighborhood kind of adopts the shelter and takes it in. And they engage in activities, the two groups of people with one another, which is the way you want it in a neighborhood. So I think there's, yes, there are challenges that come up from time to time, but there are also really terrific good news stories that have happened in many, if not most, if not all of these housing projects.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Tory, for those comments. Back to the questions. Any verbal questions? Carolyn, I know we have more written questions? Any verbal ones? This is your chance, folks, to ask that question.
Um,
Okay.
Steve has his hand up. I'm not sure if that is a new question or an old one. I can unmute. Oh, he put his hand down. So no, there are no more verbal questions at this moment.
Okay, Alessandra, I know you have a couple more written questions. Let's go with one of them.
So the next question is, what kind of measures has Homes First taken in the past to manage impacts or challenges in the community?
I can jump in there, and then my Homes First team can back me up if I miss anything. But we really take pride in the working relationship we have with our community safety team, with One Community Solutions, and with Toronto Police. So really looking forward to working with 41 Division and have that, that includes internal meetings, regular check-ins where we take the concerns or questions raised from the community and put it into action. Really, we want to be as open and transparent as we can with what we can do to support people in these concerns. We will have the community liaison committee where people can ask questions and learn and also address concerns as well. And there will be open lines of communication, like a number provided for security and for our Homes First contacts as well. So really just trying to be solution focused in all the concerns that you get and putting that into action with the teams that we work with on site. I don't know, maybe if Alex from previous sites.
I'll jump in. Yeah, I'll add a couple more things. Thanks, Ryan. So, I mean, it's similar to the question before, just in regards to how positive it can be having a shelter within the community. And one of our strategies, there are a few strategies we've done in the past that have worked really well, is even encouraging and supporting our clients in taking part in a cleanup crew that goes outside and, cleans up the surrounding area. This has really led to amazing relationships that, Michael was speaking to, in terms of just the neighbors really starting to get to know the clients. They see them every morning when they come up or go outside and do the cleanup. And then another strategy we've used in one of our recent hotel programs downtown is the peer ambassador program, which is our own internal kind of peer liaison that supports the community safety team from a safety standpoint, but then also can really effectively speak to clients and support them in maybe a challenging time, because it is that peer-to-peer conversation. They also do cleanup and, we'll pick up paraphernalia and will keep us posted in terms of anything that's going on in the surrounding area that's either, a bit of a concern or like some trends that are coming forward. But this has been a really amazing, resource for us and opportunity for our clients who are really, really motivated to be part of the community and to contribute and give back to the community that they are now a part of. So just those two other ones. And Katie, I don't know if you wanted to add anything as well.
I can just say a little something about the neighboring condos. So, over the years, we built strong relationships with the residents in the surrounding community. The members of neighboring condo boards were provided with the number for the frontline office, which is staffed 24/7, in addition to my direct number and email address, so that myself and my staff team could respond to any complaints or concerns promptly. As Mayor Tory was saying earlier, we had a condo group organize and came out to support our residents. Were invited to, regularly serve Sunday night supper. They coordinated clothing drives, event tickets and Christmas presents for the Strong residents. And, this initiative really provided opportunity for many of our neighbors to break bread and build meaningful relationships with both our staff team and our residents.
Thank you,
I would
Katie.
just like to add, Joe, if that's okay, tagging on to what Katie had to say, that I think working with and helping to establish a productive and constructive community liaison committee is probably something that everyone can do.
off the bat with what's happening here, and that Homes First is just one side of the equation, and that the community keeping an open dialogue and conversation with the team managing the site is what will lead to success, because problems can't be addressed if staff aren't made aware of them. So we need, or they and we as a team need that information in order to help them work through the problems and keep that open flow of communication with the community.
Great, thank you, Sinead. And of course, Katie was speaking about the current operations of Home First at the Wellington site when she was speaking. Rebecca has her hand up. We'll move on to that question. Rebecca, Carolyn, can you unmute her? Hello, Rebecca.
Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted. We can hear you.
Great, thank you. I'm just echoing, I think, what Sinead, whoever just spoke, had suggested in terms of an effective and constructive community liaison and committee. I think that my question was going to be, how are we going to access you in the future? How do we provide community information to you, how it's going, where are we going to have this dialogue continued? I guess I'm looking for the infrastructure in place so that I won't be surprised, you know, when I'm come up against something and I need to contact someone and I'm getting the runaround. I want this to be a relationship, and I'm not feeling like I was included in the process until it's, you know, basically in our community without anything other than this a couple days before.
Right, very good question. I tried to address some of that, but I'm going to invite maybe Ryan as the community facilitator on the Homes First side, who will be carrying the ball over the longer term. I'm more of a short-term guy, to speak to the Community Liaison Committee and what it can do once again. And well, I'll be saying it in the closing remarks as well. The Gmail site, the Gmail address, you want to get your name on that. So you get the community bulletins, you'll be invited sooner or later to apply to be a member of the Community Liaison Committee. And then you'll also be given numbers to call if an immediate problem that is not 911, but something that should be managed by Homes First, you'll be getting a number over the next little while for that as well. Ryan, do you want to say anything further to that?
Yeah, I can add a few. You nailed a lot of it. Yeah, the contact information right now is going to be added to the website that we'll provide to everyone. And, you know, right now we're collecting emails of people that want to be informed of community bulletins and CLC members and updates. And so when Joe and I work together going forward, I'll continue to build that list. My email, my contact information will be provided to everyone along with site numbers, our community safety team, how to contact them, who are a 24/7 service. That will all be included on the website and be part of communications that we send out to everyone. So this is the great first step now is getting to know everyone and finding out who's interested. And, you know, we'll have other events, community engagement opportunities. Hopefully, going forward into the new year, we can start to do some stuff in person, or we can have some opportunities for everybody to get together and get to know each other outside of the Community Liaison Committee as well. So my contact information, I know Katie's contact information will be provided, but we'll continue to provide updates on the program, updates from the city, from the Toronto Police if needed, all based on the names that we're getting and the emails that we're getting from now going forward.
Great, thank you, Ryan. Deputy Mayor Thompson, you look like you were itching to get in there.
Joe, you know me all too well. Thank you. I am actually, Joe. First of all, can someone tell me how many rooms are at the hotel currently?
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, like all told in the entire Knights Inn? There, it's 2 floors. I've been there a few times. I should know this. It's 200 rooms in total on 2 floors. I think they mirror each other. 100 rooms on the bottom, 100 rooms on the top.
Right. Thank you for that. So you're indicating that you're looking to move about between 65 and let's say 75 residents from Seton House. Is that the total number, or is there perhaps potential addition? And if not, what are the other rooms being used for, the other 130? Are there other residents living there, or is the hotel operating as a hotel? Can someone explain that to the residents, please?
I can take the first part of the question, which
Yep.
is, yeah, the existing 75 residents of, I was about to say Seton House too. I think you said Seton House. I used to work there as well. Stronghouse. I've done that before many times. The 75 residents of Stronghouse will all be offered a room at the Knights Inn, and we will be operating the program at that location. Now, in terms of the other rooms,
no. Sorry, just before you move ahead, please.
Yep.
But you're not planning to add additional clients, are you?
That would be an not from Homes First side. That would be an SSHA question. We're
Fair
controlling
enough.
the 75
Okay.
rooms. Yeah.
Okay. Is SHA able to answer that question, please?
Deputy Mayor Thompson, our focus right now is to ensure a successful transition of the program of Stronghouse to this location, and we'll have to we keep an open mind as winter progresses and other things, but certainly that would be a discussion. That would be a further discussion with you and others as needs must.
Okay,
but
thank you very much for
focus
that.
for sure on Stronghouse moving effectively.
Right, thank you for that. Can someone speak to the challenges that you've had, if there have been any, with respect to the occupants of Stronghouse currently? Presumably, as you've indicated, that you're moving them to Scarborough, should they decide to come to Scarborough. I'm just wondering, what are some of the perhaps challenges or some of the great things that are taking place currently in the facility, obviously, that has to be vacated? I asked this question because I think that some of the questions I heard about policing and so on may be muted, in the sense that if you've not had those challenges, not sure why we're going to see sort of an expanded aspect of that taking place in the community.
Katie. Sorry,
sorry, Joe. I was just going to jump in and I'm so sorry about that. Because I got excited. I love the question, Deputy Mayor Thompson, because it gives me an opportunity to sort of tout Strong as a model, and I will admit my bias. I was the life skills worker at Stronghouse, a frontline worker for over a decade, and I say this not because I work there, but I worked there that long because what I'm about to say is true, which is I think that Strong is a model that can and should be replicated across the country or North America. In any meeting we ever had with the city, people have often said you need 10 more Stronghouse. The idea behind and how we develop it over the past 15 years was we wanted to give a chance for housing for people that have had a lot of trouble maintaining it in the past because of difficulty accessing services, because they were in and out of hospitals and in shelters, and it's difficult to support people around their mental health and physical needs when they don't have an address. So a lot of people talk about housing first. I'm not getting into the high level part, but we wanted to give people a room of their own and embed the services and reach out to our community partners. So I'll use the word stabilize. It has a bit of a of a judgment there, but it's just that if people have never had an opportunity to see a doctor on a regular basis, a psychiatrist, access harm reduction supports, our feeling was being able to have a stable address and offer these supports will lower the impact, for whatever that term means, on the community than for people that were in and out of shelters, in and out of hospitals, or living on the street. Because wherever these people are, they are those people. And providing the appropriate supports in a housing setting, we think work really, really well. We had not all success stories, some failures, but I can say that there were people that were on the verge of being barred from nearly every shelter in the city because of their complex needs. Congregate settings aren't for a lot of people, and they came to Strong, and that became their housing, and they're still there. And our goal is always increasing the quality of life, and reducing the impact of negative things, negative behaviors, negative health outcomes on the entire community, on the entire city. So I say that Strong has been a success, again, not because I work there, but that's why I worked there that long. And I think it's been reflected. And I think the city's made a tremendous commitment to seeing this program through because of that. And that also allows me to talk a little bit about the development. This is a shame that the building is where it's at and why people have to move, but it's also an exciting beginning Jimmy Facciolo, who's our director of development and homelessness initiatives, is also on this call. And this is our primary goal in the next few years, being able to take this program and replicate it on a larger scale in that same location, being able to add 125 units for homeless seniors that are currently in shelters with nowhere to go. So we just thought we were desperate to try to support the people at Stronghouse. And we got calls every day from the city, from community partners saying, we have somebody here, they're 68 years old with some mental health issues and they're in a shelter. They need a room of their own. We have nowhere else to go. We wanted more space at Stronghouse, and this is an opportunity. And if I sound excited, it's because this is the most amazing thing I've ever been involved in. The idea that we could take this spot, we can make it a cutting edge, state of the art, the best supportive housing program, as I've said to my team, in the world. Now, I know that in a year, people will copy what we've done because we've learned everything that's worked and we've learned everything that hasn't worked. Just the idea, we're meeting with architects, we're meeting with design firms that are Indigenous led. We have a consultant. There is so much potential, so much that we've learned about what's worked and that we can put into practice, working with the city as our partner for this site to try to, I think, address a lot of the concerns that the community members have brought up here. We have the same concerns everyone else does. We want to come up with the best possible solutions. I think we've learned a lot, and that's what we want to do.
So I just have one
Michael,
more
and I
question.
just,
Oh,
sorry, I just thought I would add to it to further answer your question, Deputy Mayor Thompson. Like, we're starting off with the maximum potential services we can offer for the community in terms of the community safety team and other services. We may find, and from Michael's description, we're likely to find they're not necessary. And we find it's easier to scale back rather than wait for issues to arise and then have to ramp up in the future. So that's sort of the approach we're taking. We're offering the max we can to the community. And if it's not necessary, we'll reduce from there.
Fair enough. Just one final question. The site itself, can someone explain to me how the site is going to be cleaned up? There is a fair amount of derelict vehicles and other types of material on the site. When will that take place and how will that cleanup sort of begin? Thank you, Joe.
Good question.
I will, I'll start off with that. My understanding is the cleanup has already commenced. The hotel owner is taking on that responsibility. Last I heard, all the vehicles had been removed from the site. So if that's not the case, please let me know and I'll refollow back up. But we've been working closely with the hotel ownership group to ensure that's taken care of.
Thank you very much. Those stretch limos have to go. There's a bunch of stretch limos on the site. They're a peculiar picture. Okay, any further questions? Carolyn, anything on from the verbal side of things? Any hands up?
I am not seeing any hands up, except for Rebecca. I'm not sure Rebecca still has the hand up.
Rebecca did ask her question.
Yes, but Rebecca, you're off of mute in case you have an additional question. It doesn't sound like Rebecca does, but there is another question in the Q&A box.
Okay, one more question. Is it fair to call 22 Metropolitan Road a shelter hotel? That could be Loretta, it could be anyone. Loretta, let's start with you.
Yes, I think it would be fair to call it that, while the residents will be given the opportunity to move back as tenants. Michael can reconfirm, but I don't believe they're bringing that tenancy right with them.
Yeah, so I think I'm nodding my head along with you. It is no, the people have to. We are ending people's tenancy through this process, and this is the alternate location. So, this wasn't necessarily anyone's intention to open this as a shelter hotel, but I think that's fair. It is a hotel, and it will be run as a shelter. The people will not have rights under the Residential Tenancies Act. We will not have to go to the Landlord and Tenant Board. But of course, what we're going to be doing, like we do at any of our sites, is all of our work is aimed towards not having to discharge people, and unless there is aggression or threats to other people in the program or to the community. But technically, yes, appropriately, it could be called a shelter hotel.
Thank you, Muriel, for that question. It seems that we have run out of questions, and that's great. I'm now going to invite a few folks to give some final remarks if there's anything that still needs to be said. And we'll start with Mayor Tory. I hope you're still here.
I'm here, Joe. Yes.
Great.
And just to say thank you to you for a job well done moderating the meeting, to our staff and the Homes First team and everybody else for, I think, giving a good explanation. But I think it's a beginning of a dialogue, as you said at the outset. It's the beginning of a dialogue. Deputy Mayor Thompson said that. I can assure you that he has me actively involved in making sure that the concerns we've heard tonight about a number of different things are addressed. You've heard, I think, a very firm commitment given to make sure the supports are in place more than needed in the best estimate we have. And as was said, you can scale back as opposed to trying to scale up. And so I hope that could give people assurance this is going to be done in a careful, sensible way. I think you've heard the plans for the building itself, that while there are many more rooms, that the objective is going to be to have the Stronghouse residents settle effectively and well and comfortably. And I am optimistic, and I will be happy to come out and be part of this myself with Deputy Mayor, that before too long, this shelter will have been adopted into the community, and there'll be a great deal of integration and caring that will take place as neighbors would in the city of Toronto. I'm proud of the fact that for all these meetings I've been to over the course of all of last year, 2021, that while there are concerns that sometimes exist, sometimes due to lack of information at the beginning, by the time we get further along in the process, people are heartwarmed by the challenge of helping to extend support to their neighbors, to their fellow Torontonians, and that's the way we live here, and that's who we are. And I just think this is going to be yet another example of that, and together with good management from the team that you've heard from tonight. So thank you, Joe, very much, and thank you for your good job in moderating the discussion. And thanks to the residents for coming out.
Thank you very much, Mayor Tory. Appreciate your comments and your support. Deputy Mayor Thompson, final closing.
Thank you very much, Joe. And again, I also want to offer my thanks and appreciation for you hosting and moderating this meeting. I want to thank all of the staff from SSHA, as well as the folks who are from our housing support, and everyone involved for their participation. And of course, I want to thank members of the community. I particularly want to thank Rebecca, because she is the president of the Maryvale Community Association and so on. And I've had some basic conversation with her about what was actually the basic plans, which I learned of only 2 years ago. I also want to thank Mayor Tory. Really, the mayor has been steadfast in his efforts to deal with this problem. This problem has certainly not just started recently. It's been around for a very long time. If you look at other cities in North America, where the homeless population continues to grow and the programs and support and focus is not in keeping with respect to the growth. We've heard from staff of the number of people who were in our programs who have now been provided with permanent housing and so on. I don't know too much about the residents from Stronghouse other than what has been told to me. But I know that they are someone's brother, sister, mother, father, someone's loved one. I know that they're residents in our city. And I know that they're asking for us to provide assistance and help, much like we would want for any members of our family who may, for example, fall on hard times and may have a mental health issue or challenge. And the question is, how do we treat our most vulnerable individuals? Yes, as the mayor has pointed out, every community is being asked to basically, do their bit in order to help. And I think that the key points that have been raised by members of the community this evening, it's around communication, understanding what is happening, providing with members of the community with information, as well as the services that are being provided. We're not talking about warehousing people and just leaving them alone. What is being proposed is a facility that's going to provide a level of decency and a level of integration with an appropriate amount of integrity and the idea that we are providing housing to those who are in need but are having challenges with respect to their lives does not suggest that we treat them with a level of disrespect. It actually requires us to treat them with that level of respect, with dignity, and I think that's extremely important. Oftentimes when we're faced with these situations, we tend to want to make a lot of noise as opposed to, first of all, listening, responding, addressing questions that are pertinent and that needs to be answered, as well as the mayor has pointed out, in varying situations across the city, the local community has responded and has obviously helped. I look at the Birkdale's Women's Shelter many years ago when it was first proposed. It was a big outcry in the community. Today, you don't hear anything from the shelter other than the clients who are there getting their services. We are putting, a modular home on Dundalk, which is to help, because we actually have the problem in our own community. So it's not a matter of simply bringing people in to live in a facility that's available, because one facility in the downtown core is not actually up to standards in which we want to house people. And so we are going to put them in this area. I wanted to make sure that we had this conversation before the residents were brought in, and then we would have a conversation after the fact. Clearly, that would not be fair to my community. We have seen that it's been done elsewhere, and that's not the good thing, or not the appropriate thing that we want. We also want to make sure that all the partners who need to be aware are aware and are going to work together. I can assure you that working with Mayor Tory, my office is going to continue to work with the team from SSHA. And by the way, SSHA reports through to my committee, so I'm very closely linked with them in terms of that process. So we will actually be provided with information on an ongoing basis. And so Gord Tanner, who is the acting general manager, and I've had a number of discussions with him and his team. I'm going to look forward to working with the community, working with this with Home First and all the parties that are involved, along with the mayor, to ensure that we have a facility that provides the needs and support, but at the same time minimize its impact on the greater community. And so I'm looking forward to the ongoing discussion. And the final point I want to make is this is about providing housing with the services that are needed by those clients and those residents. And so it's not a matter of putting people in place without support. It's really important that we provide support to all of the residents who are going to be moving into the community, and we're going to work together to ensure that we have a balance of interests, both of those are residents, the operators, the stakeholders, my office, and of course the city as a whole. So thank you very much, Joe, and thank you to the residents who have come out and have demonstrated a level of concern about obviously wanting information, a level of care, and a level of regards. I could not be more prouder of my residents for this meeting, and I look forward to continuing to working with you. So thank you very much. I'm wishing everybody a happy holidays, Merry Christmas if that's what you celebrate, but all the best to you. And I want to remind people to make sure that they get their booster. If they haven't gotten it yet, register. And if you haven't had any of the shots, please do get the shots. It's the COVID shots. It's important. We really need to get out of this together, and this is how we're going to get through it. Thank you, Joe. Over back to you.
Great, thank you very much. Want to use the opportunity to give some good messaging on the COVID side as well. We'll turn it over to final comments to Loretta from SSHA, Shelter Support and Housing Administration. Loretta, any final comments?
I just want to thank you all for joining us this evening. I'm glad we had the opportunity to share information about the site, and do reach out if there's any questions in the future.
Thank you, Loretta. And then over to Homes First, Ryan or Michael, any closing remarks?
I usually leave it the last word with Ryan because he is doing the heavy lifting when it comes to community engagement, and he is the first point of contact often for people when they have concerns. But I just wanted to again echo what Loretta said. Thank everyone for taking their time out on it's the busy holiday season for coming out, and hopefully again that we'll be all work together to make this a positive experience for everyone and impact on the community.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, I'll just say thank you to everyone for your time today. Really looking forward to listening, learning from everyone, getting to know everyone, hopefully having some fun if the pandemic allows us to, but just being open, and I'll be here and we'll be getting to know each other over the next few months, and I hope everyone has a safe holidays and a happy new year.
Great, thank you, Ryan. Next slide, please, Marcus. We'll bring this to a close. Next steps and more information. So a public meeting summary will be posted on the website, city website. We'll get working on that right tomorrow. And of course, a recording of this event will be posted on the city's YouTube channel and shared also. There'll be a link on the project website. So if you know of someone who says, I really wanted to be there, this is a very good alternative to them being here live. So that will be posted as well. And of course, I can't repeat it often enough, if you want to be in contact with the community engagement piece of this in an ongoing way, there is the Gmail account that you will want to note, 22 Metropolitan Road @gmail.com. Send an email, not just tomorrow to get on the list, but later on, if there's something that concerns you, that bugs you, that you want to support, please let us know. And lastly, there is the project website. You might want to take a screenshot of this particular slide, and then you have all the relevant information there. Once again, we will be having the next event, so to speak, will be on December 30th at 3 o'clock. Let us know at the Gmail account if you are hoping to attend. I don't think there'll be a problem, but we will have a limit of 25 people attending that day. And we'll just walk through the community with the police, with the corporate security of the city, with SSHA, and with Homes First, and just kind of make your great community even greater with the comments and feedback and dialogue that will happen. Thank you very much, everyone. Happy holidays. And this meeting is now officially closed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone.